Welcome back to another episode of The Sweet Spot. This is John Sherman from the Four Foundations of Golf. And usually Adam will introduce himself here, as he always does, but he's not here today. I think this is only the second time in Sweet Spot history that I'm without Adam. And it was with the same guest, Mackenzie Hughes. Mac, welcome to The Sweet Spot.
Thanks for having me, John.
This is your third time on. And yeah, unfortunately, your schedule is a little difficult because you play golf for a living. Adam's on vacation right now, so you're kind of in a midst of a little bit of an off season. So this was the only date we can make work. So it's just going to be you and me. Adam says hello, and I'll do my best to ask the questions that Adam might ask.
Love it. I'm
All
ready.
right. All right. So it's been a year since you've been on. I think last time we went over President's Cup, your season. So a full year has passed, I think almost exactly. We're recording this on October 15th. I looked, the last episode was in October. You are going through a swing change right now, which I think is interesting. The stuff that you're going through is a lot of the things that we do talk about when people ask, like, should I make a swing change? And some of the boxes you have to check off. So we'll talk about your swing change. But before we do that, let's kind of give people little insights into the season. I wish you and me spent a lot of time on the phone. I bet there was a ton of gold if we recorded those conversations. Probably a lot of stuff you wouldn't want people to hear as well. So let's filter through some of the season. What went well? What didn't go well? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I think that, like you said, there's been many conversations throughout the year, and like and to your point, there's conversations that were, you know, I wouldn't say dark, but where I would let some thoughts go that, again, people probably don't even think I have, but you have, you know, all golfers at all skill levels have, these bad places they get to. Obviously my job is, to get out of those places as fast as possible. And, that's kind of what, you help me with and what we do together. And yeah, I mean, it's been a bit up and down since last October, but there's been plenty of nice ups. And I'm still searching for what brings out my best golf. I mean, I know a lot of the pieces that go into that puzzle, but obviously this new swing component is a huge part of me, I think, achieving my full potential on the golf course. Yeah, for my season 2025, look, I got off to not so great of a start on the West Coast. Kind of felt a little bit rusty out of the gates. Was fighting some swing stuff. And then I went and saw Como there in February, and that kind of jump started me, but that was also, one of those moments that you and I would talk about. That was probably um, a line in the sand that was drawn there. Um, I made that decision to go see him, which at the time seemed like a little bit of a risk, in the middle of the season. But turned out to be a very nice gamble.
Yeah, it was an interesting moment because Chris has been a guest on the show. I think he's a fascinating guy, someone who understands a ridiculous amount about biomechanics, the golf swing, but is able to distill things quite simply. So, yeah, it was maybe we'll dig into that a little bit. You were, it was a rough start to the season. You got to the Cognizant Classic, and you just didn't know where the ball was going, and it was not. Yeah, it was a very unpleasant, aftermath. The conversation we had, where it was just like, this is not going well right now. It was one of those dark conversations, as you said.
Yeah, and it was just, I was at a crossroads where I was like, I was happy with my career, but I wanted to get better. And I was like, it was one of those moments where I had enough, and I had enough of what I was doing. And I was like, I'm either going to fix this, or, I mean, I guess it could be the opposite of that, which is always that risk you kind of take on as you go down these different paths. And I think that I've gotten pretty good at knowing when is the right time, and also where to look for the right answers. I think I know myself well enough now at this point in my career. And so I went to see Chris, and, we'll get into that maybe later on in the podcast, but what Chris told me really jump-started my year. I mean, I went to Bay Hill on a sponsor exemption, and the next day I remember playing the Monday Pro-Am and feeling like oh man, this is good. Like this is really good stuff. And I felt clear. I felt confident. And I had a nice week at Bay Hill. I mean, again, I finished 20th, but on a really hard golf course, I played some really solid golf, and it was very encouraging to me. I went to the next week at Valspar. I remember gaining strokes tee to green, losing strokes putting, and finishing about 30th there. And I was like, okay, like some good stuff is going down here. And Houston played nicely there. Again, it was one of those weeks where I hit the ball really, really well, putted very average, and finished top 10. And I remember you and I thinking to ourselves, like, well, shit, like,
Yeah.
you can figure out how to putt again, like you know how to, you're going to win. I didn't necessarily do that, but I gave myself another chance at Hilton Head. And, with again, middle of the field putting, I had a chance to win a signature event. So that was really cool on a very difficult golf course that you and I and the rest of the world would have said this is not Mackenzie Hughes' a cup of tea. Uh,
A tight tree lined golf course.
yeah, but it was cool. You know, I'm sure you would agree with this as well. It was cool that, um, it was showing us that, like, hey, I do have what it takes to compete on these types of golf courses against the best players in the world. And then go forward a couple more weeks, and I got a chance to win in Myrtle Beach, and I hit the ball okay that week, but then found the putter, and so I didn't quite have all of it together, but I had good ball striking with very good putting, and came to the last hole with a one shot lead on Sunday, and that was probably in the midst of a high. That was probably one of my worst lows of the year. To lose that tournament felt like it was kind of mine all week, really. I mean, I led all week, and the only time I really didn't lead was on the last hole. So that was unfortunate, but again, I learned some things about myself there that I think are going to help me win a bigger tournament. And yeah, I mean that's just the way golf is sometimes.
Well, I think
And even on that second playoff hole, I mean, or sorry, I guess it was the first playoff hole.
first playoff hole where Ryan Fox, I don't know if people watch that, but Ryan Fox chipped in to win that tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, I got a really fortunate break off the tee in the second playoff hole, because I more or less hit the exact same tee shot I hit in regulation, and my ball kicks out in the fairway. Then I hit a really nice shot to like 15 feet. Harry Higgs out about 30 feet, and Ryan Fox was off the green probably 60 or 70 feet away. And I'm in the driver's seat, and yeah, Ryan Fox chips in, and I had a putt to tie that I missed, and that was the golf tournament. And I've been on the other side of that too, so I know how that feels, and being on the other side of it. And yeah, no, that was a tough one, but again, it was still showing me a lot of like what I had in the tank. I don't like, and I mean, you and I joked about it because it was like 6, 7, 8 weeks prior to that, I was, at this crossroads, and I was like, I don't know if I'm good enough, and why am I not having the results? And then all of a sudden, it was like 3 top 10s in 4 weeks, and a couple chances to win, and I mean, really could have won a couple times in that stretch. Um,
Well, I think that's what people don't realize. Golf fans, people listen to this podcast who watch pro golf and follow, like you see names on leaderboards and you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes.
yeah,
And, when you called me after the Cognizant, which was in early March, it was not a good phone call. You were kind of down in the dumps. It was to the point where I actually wrote myself an email that night that I was going to read to you in the future. I will not say what the email said, but it felt like a moment where I was like, I'm going to catalog, I'm going to kind of put a marker on this just to have perspective here and say, like, this was a very difficult conversation, but I feel confident that at some point in the future, this will feel like a distant memory.
well,
And
and
to
then
your
we're
credit, you have a good feel for when you need to ask for help. And you did see Chris Como, and he gave you a concept for your golf swing that you can go out and play with immediately. So, same guy, just new way of thinking about your swing. And all of a sudden, weeks later, you're contending to win a signature event,
Yeah.
which is kind of wild when you think about it when we say it out loud now.
Yeah.
But that's how kind of crazy this game can be at times, and especially at your level, like how razor thin the margin is to feeling like I can't keep the ball on the planet. I'm playing in Florida right now. There's water everywhere. And then you go to Bay Hill, which is probably one of the more terrifying golf courses on the planet off the tee. And you were fine with that new concept. You hit
Yeah.
it well. So
Yeah.
it is crazy, like when you look back on it, how these things occur.
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, I certainly that gives me belief and confidence going forward in my career, and it has for a long time now. That knowing that I've been in these little spots where I've been, let's say, in a dark place or at a crossroads, and literally within a matter of weeks, I've gone from those places to contending. So I've always like been able to keep that in my back pocket. Like, hey, look, yeah, okay, it's not where I want it to be right now, but I always know I'm gonna come out of it. I always know like it's closer than you think. But I think that's something that maybe guys that are younger don't quite have in their back pocket or don't realize quite yet, is that they think that like, okay, I'm off on my, in my game, and I need to go looking way down, down this rabbit hole to find something. With Chris, I mean, like, I mean, those concepts were simple. They weren't like, I was really the same golfer with really not a whole lot change, but just like you said, another way of like organizing my thoughts and thinking about my swing in a different way. And that was really, transformative for me at that point in the season. And I think the unfortunate part was, just given the amount of guys he had on his roster at the time and the timing of me going to him, there wasn't really enough space and time for him to, to help me. But I think had we continued on that path, who knows what might have happened. I mean, a little more guidance and, him watching me the rest of the season, could have been really nice. I don't know. So I kind of spun out of those feels a little bit, and I don't really know what happened because I really thought I had things, you know, pretty dialed in and feeling really nice. And as the season went on, I felt like I got into some bad habits again, and kind of lost my way from that guy that went on that nice run there for those 4 to 6 weeks. But yeah, the rest of the year, I mean, I played a lot of golf. Oakmont was my seventh event in an 8-week stretch, and then I played the Travelers after that. And I remember being in Connecticut and really not wanting to be there and not really enjoying golf as much at that time. I mean, honestly, I was a little burnt out. Oakmont was a long week, and then I just kept going. But that's kind of the way the schedule works now. Is you play in the non-signature events to get in those events, and then you play just well enough to get by and keep going, and then it's really tough to say no when they do give you the spot. So um but yeah, I mean, I didn't finish on the note that I wanted to finish this year, but again, I look back and it's like you finished 60th in the FedEx Cup and you're disappointed. So I think that um I know where my game, can get to, and I know what I'm capable of, and I'm hopeful that with this you know, new coach and Scott Hamilton and this, some new concepts that I can get myself back to East Lake next year.
So let's talk about this is a topic that keeps coming up on the show in one form or another. And we've talked, Mike Kim has been on the show, one of your coworkers, several times, talking about swing changes he's gone through. And it always boils down to this kind of difficult calculus of what do I stand to gain and what do I stand to lose? And every golfer has to ask that question based on their situation. Obviously, your question's a bit different because your livelihood's at stake. And we've kind of agonized over these conversations over the years. Like, do you want to go through some type of swing overhaul? Because the multiple stats, people we've spoken to, it all comes back to the same thing. Like, when you're at your best with your putter and wedges, you are absolutely elite. I think you were top 5 in the world and 24 in those categories put together, potentially the best combined. And then can we get a quarter of a stroke on approach play and tee shots each, which sounds like nothing, but it's a lot. And then the question becomes, well, man, I've got my PGA. But how many years have you had your card for? Is this 9?
Yeah, I'm going
Okay.
into 10 next year.
Okay. So that's incredibly hard to do. And you don't want to lose your tour card, obviously. But then there's this kind of filter that you have where you've seen coaches and you get swing information and you're like, I can use that or I cannot use that. And you're quite good at it. So talk a little bit about that like calculus and why that is such an agonizing decision for someone who's in your specific spot in your career.
Yeah, I think that the way the dialogue goes, and again, you're on the other side of these conversations is basically like, okay, I want to get better, but I would love to keep doing what I do for the next, let's call it 10 years. And I know what I do right now, unchanged, is good enough to do that at a fairly high level. But the calculus and the decision is, okay, if I want to win a major championship and if I want to win big time events against the best players in the world, then I need to get better from tee to green and improve my swing mechanics. And just be more reliable week to week. The problem with that though is that there's countless examples of guys that have overgone or undergone swing changes and they're gone. They disappear. They think I'm going to make my swing better and they get worse and they don't recover from that. And those are cautionary tales that you think about and you go, man, this guy's telling me this. Is that worth it? Like, do I really want to try this? It seems really hard. And you and I have had those discussions with, other swing coaches where we've said like, nah, and I'll tell you like, John, I'm trying this stuff. I really don't think it can work. It just seems like it's too much. And I'm trying to do my best to weigh out those pros and cons. Like, hey, is this the path for me? And gosh, you just got to do your best to make that judgment call. And I think, like you said, I've done a pretty good job of that throughout my career, but um, that is really tough. It is a really tough decision. And, you and I have had countless discussions about this with numerous different swing coaches and numerous different swing theories. And I think we're at a point now where we're at this nice place with, with Scott and the changes that are being implemented and, in very much agreement that these are positive, you know, fairly simple things to do now that we're working on. But man, it's like I want to do this and I don't want to give it up just yet, but you want to achieve and be better. So it's like it's a very fine line. Um, and as much as I want to do it for the next 10 years, do I want to be the 50th or 60th best for those next 10 years? The answer is no. And if it means I had to risk giving up that guarantee maybe, then yeah, I would take that risk to try to get better. And that's what I'm doing right now. And um, you know, I'm feeling still very good about it. Feeling very confident about it. I like the direction I'm headed. I like Scott, and so that's where I'm at. But it is a very very tough decision, and I know the average person might not really understand like how hard that is to decide. But, making swing changes while you're competing, well, we don't really get much of an off season, much of a chance to work on these things. So oftentimes you're taking them right to the golf course in tournament play on the PGA Tour. So it's challenging, but like I said, I think I've made a very I've made very calculated decisions my whole life, my whole career really, and this is just another one of those. And because again, my goals are higher than what I've achieved so far, and I think that like as you play each year, you know you kind of set your sights higher and higher. And I'm just one of those people that I'm not going to call it average, but I'm just tired of kind of like where I was finished, being around that 50th or 60th spot in FedEx. And um, I want to contend for big tournaments. I want to win majors. I've seen myself putting a green jacket on before, and I want to make that a reality. But if I'm going to make that a reality, um, I know I need to clean some things up. So that's what I'm doing right now.
So, I mean, a lot of it is timing, and that's difficult, and you often don't have control over that. So, you mentioned earlier in the year you were struggling and you just needed a new concept with your swing, and Chris was able to see you, and that worked for a while. It gave you a shot in the arm, which has happened in the past. You've gotten a concept and it's a shot in the arm, but it's eventually it wears off because you need continuous, you mentioned throughout the year, like, oh man, my ball position kind of floated on me. Like, just things change throughout the year that having someone who you can see on the range out there could be like, hey, this is getting out of whack. And that just obviously didn't work out because it was the middle of the season. Technically, we're in October. This is the most off season you're going to get for your career because it's the fall. You're not playing as much and you have time to kind of take a bit of a risk and, more importantly, put work in on this swing change. So let people know, like, what are you actually trying to do? And even like the beginning, the first 2 weeks of it were a little interesting back and forth, but it kind of shows how hard sometimes going through these changes are.
Yeah, I mean, so I went to see Scott, his place in Georgia, and I've told him this, and you and I have talked about this, but I walked out of there very confident and really liking what he had to say. Really, the concept was that my arms weren't really working that well on my backswing, and getting that club a little bit too inside, club too far behind me a little bit on the top of my backswing. So really, what we were trying to do was get a little more width, um, and kind of get my left arm to go a little more up and out versus kind of getting into my body and around me. And so I left there feeling very good, very confident. But it's amazing that I got a little bit confused or sidetracked into, like, I guess, like, the messaging behind it or how we talked about it. And for whatever reason, I came home and I had a couple of weeks before Napa, and I just didn't really, I guess, have it fully. I didn't really fully comprehend what the goal was, and so the way I was going about it wasn't right. I was essentially trying to, like, roll the club open, but I was doing it a lot with my arms and my hands, and I was getting the club too far behind me still. And I remember telling you, I was like, "This is no good. I can't do this. I I don't like this. It feels terrible. I can't play golf right now." Felt very lost on the golf course playing during this kinda 10-day period, and I was thinking to myself, like, "Okay, I gotta make a decision here, and I gotta figure it out fast because I'm not gonna keep doing this if it's going to make me worse in the meantime." But then I remember, reaching back out to Scott, and this is only, like, a few days before Napa. I was almost like, in reality, I was almost just, the call was more or less just to say, I can't do this. And we hop on a FaceTime the next day. He's like, "Hey, let me just, like, walk you through it again." And we were on FaceTime for no more than 5 minutes before I had the eureka moment again. And I was like, oh my God, like, light just, like, clicked on. I started hitting shots and I was like, oh my God, this feels incredible again. And it was just, again, him seeing it, explaining it to me again. But just the way he explained it the second time, I think it really clicked for me what, like, really the goal was, what he really wanted to see. And it was really like, what came from that conversation was that my left arm, it's more about my left arm going up. And I remember thinking, like, once I felt that, I was like, oh, this isn't that hard. I'm like, it's just really, I mean, really going to key in on my left arm here. And I'm just going to really focus on that. And I remember calling you or sending you video that day being like, I got it. Like, I'm back. And it was just like, I mean, it was 10 days of, you talking me off a ledge. And then it was like the next day I was like, I got it. We're good. Forget everything I said. So, and I think even at that time, you were probably still skeptical, like, I don't know if does he really have it, or is he just drinking the Kool-Aid? But
Well, my perception of it is that I know you fairly well now, and I think your instincts are usually pretty damn good. They're not perfect, obviously. They're kind of golf is an educated guess all the time, but you have really good instincts and a good filter of knowing like I can go play golf with this or I cannot go play golf with this. And I was glad you spoke with him again, obviously, because it does illustrate how important communication is and concepts are in coaching. Because we've talked about this plenty on the show, and Adam said it like you go to 10 different swing instructors, they'll give you 10 different ways of explaining something, and even someone at your level, and you're not, you're more of a feel, you're not a big technical guy. So someone's got to say something to you that you're going to go on the range for a few hours and be like, I like what that golf ball is doing. I understand what he's saying to me. Like, this makes sense. I can do this. Versus if someone gave you like three or four things and you're like, huh? Like, it's interesting. I hope people find this interesting that someone at your level, has to get the right feel, thought, you know, wording, and that can make all of the difference. And when I hear you being optimistic and confident in what someone's saying to you, then I'm like, okay, based on everything I know, he would have discarded this quite quickly if it wasn't, if he didn't feel it was right for him because your instincts are good.
Yeah. And I think that, you also know me well enough now to know that like everything coming out of my mouth is the truth. Like I don't sugarcoat anything. I tell you all the thoughts I'm feeling. And so when I went from like this place of like, oh, I can't do this to like, oh no, I've got it again. I think that like, that there's a ton behind that. Like it's not just, I don't just say those things, on a whim. And yeah, it just started to make sense to me. It clicked. And then I had a few days before Napa, hit a bunch of balls in that time. And then I went to Napa where I was going to get to see him a few days later and, kind of continued those conversations, continued those feels. And yeah, it just started to feel different, started to feel really good. And I liked what I was doing. And I played the whole week in Napa with those thoughts and those feels. Um, yeah, there was times where I, didn't quite have it or I felt a little bit off, but I'd say largely felt pretty good about what I was doing. Um, had a nice week there. I mean, anytime you finish top 10 on the PGA Tour, you've done a lot of really, really nice things. And so that was a huge positive for me right out of the gate to see like, hey, I can go play golf with these thoughts and these feelings and play at a high level. And that's always like, I mean, like you said, I mean, the first day you had a feeling of like, hey, it's going to be 75 or it's going to be 63.
I
And
texted you after the fact. I didn't say it
it
beforehand, but
happened to be
yeah.
63. I mean, he didn't tell me that ahead of time, but it was just like, yeah, he's either going to be off or he's going to figure it out and he's going to be on. And that first day it was on. And obviously putted fairly well that day, I think. But
I think you gained almost 6 strokes with your putter, which is absurd. And that's kind of been like the crazy thing about your season is that, generally you're one of the best putters on the PGA Tour, top 5, top 10. And this year you didn't, it's not, nothing was like wrong, but it just, your putter wasn't cooperating. And likely, that affected a lot of your results this season. And then all of a sudden in Napa, the thing just explodes again. You're reminded like, oh yeah, I could make a ton of putts. And
yeah,
that's the frustrating thing about golf for everyone is like, you're trying to make strides somewhere else and then something that was one of your strength dips. And it's just like you're trying to plug all these holes on a leaking ship sometimes.
yeah. And
And
I
then it
think
just
that
kind of comes out.
yeah, I think that I look back on the season too and I go, well, if I had putted just to my standards good, like not even just like, not great, but if I just putted like good for my standards, I mean, I probably stay in that top 50, and which is not, that's not very far off for me to, for 50th. Um, so there obviously was some pretty good things there, ball striking wise. I had enough good stuff there, given where I, was with my putter this season. So yeah, there were some encouraging things, and again, like the putter is starting to feel a bit more normal on my hands again, a bit more like it usually does. And I'm bullish on 26. I mean, I feel like I'm going in the right direction, working on the right things, and have a lot of nice things in place that I think are gonna, yeah, just allow me to play my best in 26.
So with the swing change, we're all a bunch of ball striking nerds. We love talking about face control and what are things are doing. And ultimately, like these changes you're going through are to get more club face control. So you will have more opportunities to win golf tournaments if you can control where your club face is pointing at impact better with your irons and your driver. Easier said than done, obviously. So we've talked about this before on other shows, kind of like the boxes that get checked off with the swing change. And this could be for, your quote unquote average player. So you want to see some evidence that when you see the instructor, they explain it to you that on the range, you are getting changes in ball flight where you're like, oh, okay, that's good. So explain to the listeners, like, what does that look like for you when you have those moments on the range? When you do it, you see it on camera, Scott's explained it to you and you're like, yep, this is working. Like, what are you seeing or what are you feeling as well?
Yeah, so I think that, well, like I was saying before, the biggest thing I'm looking for, like from an appearance standpoint, like and I'm looking, I'd say most of my swing change videos are from the down the line perspective because I want to see the club work more up, and I want to maintain width with my right arm. So my right arm tends to fold and get behind me a little too much. I want that left arm to go up, but that right arm to stay wide. Actually, if you watch like a guy like Garrick Higo right now, he's basically doing exactly what I'd like to do in my swing. He's a bit of a model for me to look at. Um, and he's played great the last little while. But he's actually gone through a swing change himself. In that, I think he's doing really what I'm trying to do in my swing. Which again is that like a little more up, more width. And Scott's belief is that you can have a clean up the backswing. That's going to give you a much greater chance on the downswing to do what you want to do. But for me, I was getting it in a spot where it was like behind me, a little bit across the line, and just made it difficult for me to shallow the club and square it up consistently. And a lot of times it required, you know, good timing, good hands. And you can do that 4 or 5 weeks a year. And those are your top 10s, top 15s, chance to win, which are great. But you'd love to be there 10, 12 times throughout the year if you play 30 events. And I don't mean like theirs and like chance to win 10, 12 times, but just like top 20s, top 10s, where you're just kind of hanging around that area. And so yeah, the idea is that if I can maintain that structure and that width to keep club more in front of me, I'm just going to have to rely on my timing of my hands less. And when I'm on the range, what that looks like is that I have a really hard time hitting the ball left, which left is my kryptonite. That's my miss. Myrtle Beach, last hole, left. You know, arms and hands kind of get going fast, body kind of stalls, and it's kind of roll, just a roll, left shot. So when I'm on the range doing these changes and it feels really good, that ball is falling left to right, maybe even a slight pull cut, and it feels really good. Like it feels unbelievable. I told you that when I was on the range, in Jackson a couple weeks ago, Tuesday, Wednesday, it got to a point where it was feeling like really, really, really good. Like
There are
when
some
I,
there are some
yeah,
early calls.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was very bullish on my chances in Jackson. But here's the thing with golf is that what you can do on the range and what you can do on the golf course, like everyone listening knows, are different things. Even for us. I mean, I could not hit anything but a cut on the range. Just swing felt really, really, really good. And I went out there Thursday and hit it worth a shit. So I mean,
Which
that's
it which
golf.
is which unfortunately is, you know, that's why you're kind of, not that these tournaments don't mean anything to you, but the whole point of doing it, and to correlate this to normal golfers, like in, closer in like the fall is a great time to make any change, equipment, swing. And for you, like you're just not playing as many tournaments. Historically you've played great in the fall. That's when you've won. And you still have one or two tournaments left. So anything is possible. But the whole point of going through that is that so you won't go through that hopefully next season in the early stretch of the year. So you have to kind of accept that, yeah, I was striping on the range. I'm on top of the world. You called me Wednesday night being like, man, this is incredible right now. And then you went out the next day and, you didn't play like horribly, but it just wasn't there. Like you weren't
Yeah.
seeing the same ball flight, but that is to be expected, right? That is what you signed up for when you went through this change.
Well, when you go through a swing change, you go through these progressions, right? Like at first you can't do it at all, right? And then you can do it on the range, and then you can do it with like, on the course playing a, competitive round against, some buddies or in a match. And then you bring it to a PGA Tour event. And right now, I can do on the range really well. But the next step is to kind of bring that to the course in some capacity, whether it's, competitive matches or, in PGA Tour events here and there sparingly when I can, put it together. But it's yeah, it's tough. But like you said, I'm committed to knowing that this is my time to do it. I've got a few more months left this year. And my goal was to be ready by, the beginning of 26, where I've got this stuff fairly down pat, and I know that I kind of own my move in this new swing. So yeah, it's exciting though because like I've seen it now in practice where I'm like, if I can be this guy, if I can hit it like this, which obviously I'm showing I can do it. Now go do it on golf course. If I bring that guy to the golf course and short game it like I know I can, I'm very bullish on what I can do on the golf course in 26. And I obviously need to, be careful how much I get into the expectations of, what I can do and all that. But um, that's what you and I will have, many conversations about, as we go forward is just like, hey, you're hitting it great. You know, the old cliche is like, hey, let's just go, kind of control what we can control, do the best we can every day and add them up at the end. That's when I play my best golf. Yeah, and honestly, I haven't been in that place very often where I, get so caught up in how good I'm hitting it that I'm just like, oh man, this is gonna be great. And that's not something I've generally felt throughout my career. So usually it's just like, hey, get me on the green and I'll make this putt.
Well, yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll be talking sooner than that, but maybe we have the conversation a year in the future on this show and we'll see how it went. But you've had let's call it an interesting relationship with your golf swing throughout your career where it's kind of gone in and out of sync. And as long as I've known you, this is the most excited I've heard you about, something that you can work on and you feel like, it's really important. We've talked about like the idea of like a quest or having something you're working towards. And there's been times where you've gone out on your own and you said like, well, I'm just going to be my own swing coach and kind of figure it out. And it works until it doesn't. And then you kind of say like, all right, I think I need help now. And it's nice that you have a framework in place. You have a few months to work on it and kind of a quest to go on. You know what you're doing when you show up to the range, you know what you're looking for, and you have a couple of opportunities to compete on the tour and as well as, in private matches as well. And you kind of have this positivity looking into next year because it's like, I have a plan. I feel good about this. And that does mean a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I remember even when like, when first went to see Scott telling you that it was like, when you're going into your 10th year on a PGA Tour, it was almost like that a new excitement had been re-engaged and like a new spark, a new relationship. I mean, it's like that sometimes is enough just in itself, but I really do believe in the next steps and what we're trying to do. So that's even more exciting. But yeah, just like that new adventure, that new path. And obviously, again, I fully believe in it, so that's even more exciting. And yeah, just I'm hopeful that I can make the next 10 uh, better than the first 10. So, and I
What was funny was to hopefully give more evidence that you're thinking you're on the right track is you were on the range. Was it in Napa? And two people came up to you and you're like, yeah, that looks good.
yeah, and I mean,
Unsolicited.
I mean those two people. I mean, I'll say it. Were people that I really trust, and Sean Foley and Jamie Mulligan, who coaches Patrick Cantley and Nelly Corda, and I mean they both, yeah, were in agreement that like I'm working on the right stuff, and that to me is very, very reassuring. Not that I needed that, but certainly don't mind hearing that from guys like that.
So I think that shows people like no matter what level you're playing this game at, there's kind of this calculus you have to make. It is like, is what I have good enough? Like I've posted this meme that always goes viral no matter what. It's a cartoon with two people sitting on both sides of a bus. One
I know
guy,
what I'm talking about. The one
yeah,
where it's like the guy's happy he shot, 85, and the one guy's sad that he shot 85 or
yeah.
whatever it is.
So it's like a life thing, and golf is with results. And well, my next question is going to be about identity, so we'll get into philosophical stuff here. But it it is a difficult spot to be in sometimes because if someone came up to you when you were 18 and being like, you're going to get your card on the PGA Tour for almost a decade. You're going to get to top 40 in the world. You're going to win. You're going to make all this money. You're going to have this great career. And you'd be like, whoa, sign me up. Like, that's awesome. Were you expecting that when you were 17 or 18? I think you had hoped it, but were you like certain about it?
No. No,
No,
but
right?
definitely not.
And, you know, for better or worse, you go through that, you achieve all of this, and then there is this competitive side to you. Obviously, you're a competitor. You compete for a living, where you're saying like, I want to try and keep getting better, but I'm not willing to just risk it all on a change for the sake of changing, because you've done that before, where you've sought out advice. And it has nothing to do with the quality of instruction. You've seen so many good instructors. It's a matter of like the matchup and your communication and how you perceive things.
Yeah.
And you say like, okay, this is for me, this is not for me. And then you kind of evaluate the risk and you say, oh, now I can do this. I will move forward with this. And I want to be at East Lake. I want to win more. I want to win a major one day. And then that's where it's like you have to balance the two.
Well, here's a funny one for you, and I'll try to make this very quick. But 2 years ago, remember when we were going through the coaching carousel? So one of those guys, who was the women's golf coach at Kent State, Casey, his name's Casey, he more or less told me the same thing that Scott is telling me. But he said it in a way that didn't make as much sense at the time. And if you remember, he actually did talk about my right elbow being too far behind me.
Yeah, I do remember you saying I got a pretty good nugget from an old coach. I
Yeah,
remember
but
that
but
specifically.
he the way I was thinking about it was all I was thinking about it all on my right elbow, and I was trying to really, like, keep my elbow from going behind me, and it felt super restrictive and tough, and I was like, "Man, I just don't know if I could do this, like, on the golf course." But thinking about it more as my left arm, so, like, if you think about your backswing, like, if my left arm goes more up and out, like, it's going to help my right arm not get behind me. But I was thinking about it with my right arm only and thinking about keeping my right arm more or less like more external. Internal is getting too far behind me and keeping it more external, which is like, again, thinking about like, yeah, elbows more in front, elbows closer together. But thinking about it in those two different ways felt very different. And like you said, sometimes it's just explained in a different way and it makes sense coming from another mouth and it's the exact same concept. And um, so it is kind of funny that like those things, those things happen where I mean, I was getting a message similar to that a couple years ago, but it just wasn't quite explained. And again, maybe communication, maybe if I'd asked more questions and followed up more, maybe, it would have come about and
Well,
maybe I would
also
have want,
you were in conversations with 3 or 4 other people at the same time as well, so it was
yeah.
in the midst of many other internal swing
It was
thoughts.
it was a bit cloudy. It was a bit cloudy in my head for sure.
Well, also, something I also know about you is like when you're ready to hear something, you'll hear it.
Yeah,
So if you're not ready to hear something, you just kinda push it
yeah,
to the side and move
yeah,
on.
yeah. I mean, honestly, that was the end of 23, and I mean, heck, in 24, I had a pretty nice year. I mean, so it's like maybe that wouldn't have made me better at the time, and I wouldn't have achieved the things I did. Anyways, it is interesting though, like these different things you hear, different in the timing of when you hear them in your career makes a big difference, and who they come from. But happy with where I'm at now, and excited about the stuff that is ahead.
Yep. How much more time do you have? Because I have another topic.
Let's go for it. Let's dive in.
So we've talked a lot about identity on this show in the probably last few months in various episodes, and there were kind of two things that happened this year on tour that kind of give a glimpse into like how difficult it is for your performance in golf to become part of your identity or not. So one huge example was, when Rory finally won the Masters and put us and him through that crazy roller coaster. And we're like, man, he finally did it. Like it seems like his life is solved and he achieved the thing that was nagging him for a decade. And to be honest, like in the month or two after it, like he kind of seemed almost as tortured as ever. Like he was not in a good place, it seemed. And then you had this press conference with Scheffler where he just went like full nihilist on everyone, was like, yeah, I mean, this is nice winning, but it kind of is a shot in the arm. It goes away, but like it's not, it's not, he said a lot of different things, but
Yeah,
I think it took people off guard because he was like, it's not as fulfilling as you think. And,
and
he gets
it
his
only
identity elsewhere.
it only lasts a few minutes. He was saying, and he's like, if I win this tournament, yeah, like the feeling goes away pretty quickly. And I remember a lot of that press conference, and and again, I kind of sense where you're headed with this conversation, and I feel a lot of what Scotty was saying. Now that I've got 3 kids, I'll admit that even today I pondered, like, what if I just walked away now? I mean, not even just today. I was like, my kids are at a great age. They're very fun. They have lots going on. It'd be nice to be home a lot, but I also wanna show them what hard work, working towards goals, can look like too. So it is a fine line, but, ultimately, you know, when I look back at my life, if I fast forwarded, I don't know, let's call it 60 years, say I make it to 94 and I'm laying there and yeah, that's it. I've got a few more breaths and I'm leaving this world. I know for a fact that I will not be thinking about golf. I will not be thinking about a tournament I didn't win, a shot I want back. I'll just want everyone that I loved around me. And I will want to say, a few more things. I will want one more hug. I will want a few more moments with those people. And yeah, I mean that's it. That's life. I mean that is what the heart desires, that connection, being with those that you love the most. And I think that, the older I've gotten, I mean, the last few years, it has definitely hit me where I'm like, I really hate being away and missing cool moments. I hate missing baseball games and performances at school and even just school pickups and drop offs. I just don't enjoy being away for that stuff. And it makes you think about it. And I know that what I'm doing right now is, it is like I'd be naive and it wouldn't be truthful to say that what I do is not important. I mean, I do, you know, I value what I do, and I think it's important because it's what I work hard for and what I work hard towards. I put a lot of time into it, but ultimately in the big picture of life, yeah, it is fairly inconsequential. But
Well, it's hard when you do something for a living that is results oriented, and obviously, a professional athlete, specifically a golfer. What's more results oriented than that? It's easy to let golf and the way you're playing like be your identity. And, that's what was interesting between like, Scotty's press conference and some of the stuff that's happened with Rory and honestly tons of other golfers you see. And you've even told this to me, like it's something you've struggled with in your career because when you play well, when you get in the lead in the first or second round, all the reporters want to talk to you. Your phone's blowing up. Everyone's texting you. I'm sending you stupid gifts. And, everyone's like, oh, wow, this is incredible. And you're conditioned to, feel like, oh, this is good. I'm doing good because I'm getting good results. And then when you don't play well, the
or
reporters don't talk to you.
or even that, like you're like leading the tournament, and then you shoot to Saturday 74, and all of a sudden you got no texts, no interview requests, and you just head straight home. It's like,
Yeah.
oh
Right.
man, what a,
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
just,
I guess, I'm a loser, um, and then obviously you don't say that to yourself, but it's kind of like drilled home without you even really having to do anything. It's just like, hey, like you go play good, you're you kind of like the guy, and people are texting you and congrats and great playing and keep it up. And then you get the interviews and all that comes with it. But like, I don't know, it's just I think that it's kind of the nature of what we do. So you kind of I think I've been able to kind of compartmentalize that a little bit better lately. But yeah, there was a point there where I was like, man, this is like a very stark contrast. It's like a really good round, lots of contact, lots of messages and well wishes, and then when you probably need it the most, like I mean, I don't need someone when I shoot 63. I don't need people to be like, "Hey, great playing." Like I know, like I'm
Yeah,
like,
no,
yeah,
no shit.
I was there and I saw it. I'm like, I am feeling great, whether you say anything to me or not. But then you go shoot 76 and you're near the bottom of the leaderboard, and it's like crickets. And that's probably when you need someone to be like, "Hey, man, you're Mackenzie and Hughes. Let's go." Still believe in you, buddy. Like, and again, I don't need that, but it's just funny how that works now. And it's funny how it's almost a little bit backwards, but it does kind of like drill home a little bit that like you're really attached to your score and that your identity is like somewhat tied up in that. But my objective and my work off the course is to make sure that's not what I truly believe. It can seem that way, maybe in that context, if you look at it in that context, I guess. But my goal, with myself and with you, and again, is that like I mean, you've even talked about it with me where it's like I'll have a bad finish to a round, and you're like, well, you know, at the end of the season or in a month or in a few weeks, like we're not even gonna be remembering this stuff. It seems huge right now, but like it all fades away. It all goes away. Those feelings are not permanent. And but yeah, I think that can be a professional athlete thing. I'm sure that like if a kicker misses the last kick of the game, and lets his team down, I mean, he could go 4 for 5. Made 4 really great kicks, but misses the last one when he absolutely had to make it, and all of a sudden, it's like, you're getting death threats, and fans are calling for him to be, kicked off the team, and this guy stinks, and, "Oh, I coulda made that kick," and it's like, kinda come to the territory a little bit, but at the same time, you need to, like, have your own kinda your own walls up, I guess, to know, like, "Hey, I know I did everything in my power to perform at my best," and sometimes it works out, sometimes it does not. But
I
you and
think,
I talk about, it's like
yeah.
if my process is good, you and I have talked about this a million times. I'm like, "Hey, John, I want to come back to you tomorrow and say I did the exact things that we talked about, control what I could, had a great attitude. Whether I win or lose, this is going to be my goal for tomorrow." And that's kind of what is most fulfilling, actually, is when you go out there and you do exactly what you say you're going to do, and kind of let the results be the results. And then, oftentimes when you do that, you know, good results do kind of follow. So, but
I
the
think that
identity and golf score, I mean,
it's hard. Yeah, I mean,
is hard.
I think everyone listening to this show has that problem on some level because they care about golf a lot, and for you, it's heightened because it's your career too. And I've been honest with people. Like I've had this issue myself where the line between who I am as a person in my golf game sometimes doesn't exist, and I could like feel like cracks in my personality with shots I'm hitting. It's very unpleasant, but I think you and anyone else is at their best when you could say to yourself and feel good about, man, I I take a lot of pride when you call me after rounds that someone would look at and be like, you know, and you're like, you know what? That's okay. My swing felt a little off today, but like everything else was great. Not a big deal. You processed it. You're logical about it. And I know when you do that more often, like there's usually better results coming very quickly. Whereas when you're struggling to separate the two, then it's like, okay, now we've got perhaps a bigger problem here, and this needs to be worked on a bit. And everyone will struggle with that on depending on their situation on some way. But I think deriving the satisfaction in that like separate quest, that separate scorecard, whatever the hell you want to call it. And that's kind of like the last question I have for you is like, when you look back a year from now, or as you said, at the end of your life, you'll likely have less regret that you played the game a certain way and you held yourself to a certain standard versus remembering like, oh, did I become seventh that week or 14th? Did I make this? But it was more about the way you approached it and the standards you set for yourself. That's like, wow, I do feel good about this, that I did it that way. And I didn't, beat myself up way too much and feel like crap when I didn't play well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, and if you like, those are my like, those mini goals throughout the rounds and tournaments where it's like, my process was really good, my attitude was really good. And you're like, man, like, you know, score and the shots didn't look great, but it's like, man, shot 70, but you're just like, yeah, I managed it really well, kept a great attitude all day, kept trying to control what I could all day. And yeah, I didn't quite have it, but I just like really did a nice job of just doing those things well, those little small things. Again, it's one of those where like the round wouldn't get much attention. People aren't really talking about it, but like you and I are like, oh, that was awesome. That was a really great day. And it looks so mundane, looks so average. And then it might lead to a 65 the next day where you do the exact same thing, but you bring the physical with it. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, like it's right there. And he's doing a great job. And it looked this, I mean, it looks far different, but for us, it's like, hey, you input the same effort level, the same intent, the same focus, and golf just spits out different numbers. I mean, that's really what it is. It's like putting like you put the same quarter into the slot machine, and every time it's a bit different. But if that same quarter has, your process goals, your good attitude, good preparation on it, you just keep putting that quarter in the slot machine, and you keep pulling the lever. And more often than not, if you put the quarter in the right way with all those things on it, like you're gonna get enough good on the other side of that. And I think that'd be like a goal for me, for the next however many years I play, is that I can look back on this next stretch. And really, I mean, I've done a great job for the last 4 or 5 years, but like to look back on the next big chunk of, seasons I play on the PGA Tour and look back and go, you know what, that was like, I really loved the way I went about it. I loved that I was kinder to myself, mm, had a great attitude, worked really hard on the right things, and like that to me is what's going to be fulfilling. And whether that leads to 8 wins or one more win or no more wins, that's not really up to me. But I know I can control those things that I put into it. And you and I talk about it all the time. That's like that's fulfilling. That's gratifying to do that. And yeah, but like you said, I mean, at the end of the day, 60 years from now, it won't be the golf that I remember. It'll be other things. But I'm in that point in my life where I still want to achieve some things in this game. And my oldest son thinks it's pretty cool now that his dad's on the PGA Tour, and he's gotten pretty familiar with the name Scotty Scheffler, and he knows that I basically just need to beat him if I'm going to win a tournament. So, but no, it's really cool. And, yeah, it's I really enjoy what I'm doing still. Uh, going into year 10, that's a good thing because there are guys that I know that are out there that just kind of beating their head against the wall and really negative and really mean to themselves, and it's a tough way to go about it. So,
Yeah. Well, I think obviously we'll see what happens over the next year. Your results will be available to the world,
I'm
but
gonna hide them.
yeah, you can't. And that's the hardest thing about what you do. Everyone sees it all the time, and you're very good at handling that, even though it's not easy at times. But what I get excited about and I'm proud of you for, and excited to be a part of, is that you're leaving no stone unturned, so that kind of reduces the regret and the what if. Like, you are taking action on your golf swing. You've taken action on figuring out We've spoken to these stats people you work with and making sure that, everything's buttoned up on the decision making and making sure, what trends they're seeing in the courses you're playing. And you and I going over every round that you play and seeing what went well and what didn't go well and what you can improve on it. And more importantly, just making sure that you're like, when you get back to the hotel room, you're processing everything well so that you can go to bed, not, kind of ruminating over these things as best as possible. And yeah, that is very satisfying to keep turning over every stone and saying, like, you're literally doing everything you can to perform at the highest level. And at the same time, trying to balance your family life and everything else. And it's quite difficult. But um I will publicly say to all these people on the show that I admire how you go about it and I respect you for it. And it's very cool to watch and be a part of. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Obviously, there's newfound positivity with swing changes and everything you're doing, and we see what happens.
Well, I think it's only fair that I say that, I value, the time that we get to spend on the phone together and the time that we've had. It's been over 2 years now. And yeah, I think that we've, they've had some very nice highs, I mean, I remember, calling you, telling you I made the President's Cup team and, you know, calls after some really great weeks. And, even like, again, weeks that like maybe you finished fifth or sixth, but you just like, overcame some really great things, that like, I don't know, they weren't talked about. They weren't really, they weren't newsworthy, but like you and I were like, man, that was awesome. And yeah, I mean, we just had thousands of conversations. And I think that every time we have a conversation, it just leads to good things. It leads us down a path that's better. I think that like we almost always leave a conversation better off once we've, like I've called you, that hey, I need to talk. And then we always end up leaving the conversation on a pretty good note and just knowing where to go and having a direction. I mean, it's all I want really is just to like continually get my head in the right place to go perform at my best. And sometimes you have to do that quick, right? You have to go from a Thursday night and I just finished that round on a really sour note. Friday morning, I need to be fully engaged and ready to go play great again. And that's really hard to like let go of what I just did, but we need to do it. And we'll hop on the phone and we'll work through it and we'll, figure out what went wrong and learn from it and then move forward. But yeah, it's been cool to you know, to do it with you. And I feel like the way it started was pretty funny. And but like I said to the people listening, I mean, I follow you. It's all the same stuff that like I mean, I initially when I say I fell for John, it was like I fell for all the things that he was saying on Twitter, which are literally again, it's like that's what he's saying to everybody. I mean, it's to every golfer. It resonates with everybody. I mean, all those tweets were resonating just with me. I mean, they were like the simplest, really the simplest tweets. It's just like, hey, you're going out there today, like be grateful, have fun, enjoy what you're doing, like stuff like that, or, whether it was process oriented things, but just all those things resonated with me. And, you know, obviously I'm doing on the PGA tour, but for the weekend golfer, it's all the same stuff. So pretty neat.
All
But
reminders to myself too.
yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, again, I try and be honest with everyone listening. Like I go through the same things too. I we just did an episode a couple weeks ago, and when I lost my temper on the course the other week, and I had texted you, and you're like, "Hey, do you want to talk about it?" But yeah, thank you for saying all that. But yeah, I think that has been the most interesting part of doing this with you the last couple of years. And when people ask me, friends of mine or whatever, people I play with, like, oh, what's it like, Mackenzie and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? Obviously, he's way better than all of us. I'll never play like him. But the stuff that he deals with and what puts him in a good place, I think could help a 20 handicap, a 10 handicap, scratch, whatever it is. It's just obviously you're at a much different level and it requires way more attention to be at your best, but it's different but the same. So that's what I've always found fascinating about it. The stakes are just really high, obviously.
yeah. I mean, in every decision that you and I make when we're talking about the big stuff, just carries more implications. Like if we were going to ask a 20 handicap golfer, say, hey, look, we're gonna take you through a 10-month overhaul of your swing.
Yeah. What's the worst that could
Okay.
happen?
I mean, you're either gonna be a 20 or you're gonna be a 30 maybe if you're really bad, and then you're gonna be maybe a scratch if in, a couple of years you figure this out and it comes together. But for me, it's like you might lose your job or you can become really good and you can win a major maybe, but the in
No
between
big
you just
deal.
don't know. So,
No big deal.
um, yeah, I mean, you're making a bunch of calculated choices all the way along, and, hopefully you got people around you that can help you, which, I've got good people around me that help me and make those decisions, and excited to, keep going down the path I'm on, and hopeful that I can check off some of those bigger goals, in the next few years.
Well, I believe in you. You know that. And I know we have a ton of people listening to this show who've become big fans or supporting you. And yeah, either way, like you're out there doing the hard thing. You like doing hard things. You like challenging yourself. And it could go great. It might not go as great as you hope. We'll see. So I know it's your off season. I'm going to let you get back to your kids so you can spend some quality time with them. But thanks for taking the time to chat with me and engage with the audience. And yeah, we'll hopefully check back in maybe some point during the season or after the season, and we'll see how things go. And it won't just be about your scores and the money you make and if you won, but we're gonna see, what you went through. And I appreciate you being honest and kind of sharing this stuff with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, honest to a fault sometimes, but yeah,
Yeah, you are. You
I'm
are.
always honest, and, I think it's important to let people know how you feel and to talk through it and get it out there. Almost every single thing I've gone through in my career or my life, I've always felt like once I've just talked through it, like the answers kind of come to you a little bit. You just work it out, I mean, and yeah, so we'll always keep doing that. And I think it served me pretty well. Served me pretty well so far. So, but yeah, look forward to get back on here the next few months. We'll make it before a year for sure.
Okay.
Next
I will
time.
hold you to that.
Okay.
Thanks everyone who makes it this far to the end of the episodes. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next time with the new one.